not just funny, but we have deep conversations as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I would say interesting and entertaining conversations. And I thought that, or we thought that people might be entertained by our
Yeah.
conversations.
So, the other thing that we need to tell you too is that we don't know what we're going to talk about
Well,
because
I know half of what we're talking about, and you know half of what we're talking about.
I never really know what I'm talking
That might be true.
about. All right, I'm gonna get my leg in there. Right. So, what are we gonna do? Should we
Um,
get started?
okay.
Who's
All
gonna go
right.
first? Shall we
You
choose?
go first.
I'll choose a topic.
No, I'm going to give you a topic.
Oh, okay. You're gonna give me a topic.
Yeah. I'm going to hand it to you. You read it, and then whatever we say is whatever we say.
Okay. Here goes. Okay. Well, this says Temple Grandin. It probably doesn't say it there, but it says it for me. Temple Grandin, and we were just watching a video, a film about Temple Grandin, which is why that topic came up. So,
Yes.
so what were your thoughts?
Well, I've known who Temple Grandin is for a while
Mhm.
because, and some people might not know this, but I used to be a special education teacher.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I was a teacher's assistant in a preschool for children with special needs.
Yeah.
And then later I became a teacher for children kindergarten through third grade. And I had quite a few children who were autistic. And actually, one of the preschool programs I worked in was specifically for kids who had autism. So I'm pretty familiar with kids with autism.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So my experience is, I mean, I haven't had that many experiences with kids with autism specifically. I guess a few incidences through my childhood and growing up, and then as a violin and viola teacher, as a violin teacher, I had some brothers locally here who actually went through an amazing transition while um, having lessons. They went from a state where they were unable to listen to music, but I feel like through having control of playing, they got to a place where not only could they play the music themselves, but they could then experience that music in church. And I was actually invited by a mother to come in and listen to them perform at their church for a kind of, I think it was a concert or something. And there was other much louder music, which previously she said they wouldn't have been able to have dealt with, but they were able to just listen and participate in the concert, which is amazing, really. And I think it goes to show the power of learning music and the power of taking that on for yourself. I mean, as a learner, because you're taking that control of that thing yourself, you actually have real true participation in it. I don't know.
Mm.
So what are your? I mean, because you've experienced a lot more than I have.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that in the movie, of course, I
Temple
can't remember
Grandin.
how old she is now, but she's probably in her 60s or 70s now. So when she was a child or young adult, it was quite a few years ago when the knowledge of autism and what it was much more limited. And so one thing I noticed in the movie was they thought it was a mental health condition.
Oh yeah, the ideas that they were talking about at the very start of the film, where they were saying that the mother hadn't given their child attention. You know.
Yeah, enough physical touch and hugs and
love.
yeah.
Yeah, it was quite quite interesting just to see how far I think our ideas have changed on.
And really,
things.
that's a disservice to people and parents who have a kid with autism and people who have autism, because if they just, equate it to not having enough attention, that really minimizes um, what the person with autism is experiencing and feeling, and kind of says that, well, it was preventable because somebody did something wrong, instead of
Yeah.
accepting them as they are
I
because they're their unique person. And really, most people, well, everybody has certain talents and
Yeah.
abilities,
Yeah, I think
but
agree.
people with autism often have something that's like exceptional
very
about
specific.
them.
Yeah, specifically exceptional. Yeah, and I've actually worked not necessarily with folks with autism, but as a musician, I've worked with folks that are more on the Asperger's end of the spectrum, and it's really been kind of it's presented its own challenges, but also its own benefits. The person I can think of specifically was able to take criticism in a way that generally I don't think folks would normal whatever. I mean
Typical.
typical. Yeah, there you go. You help me out with the real words. um, yeah, typical folks get so attached to how they're being or if they're right or and this person was totally, if you told them, that's not the way to behave, they were like, oh, okay. And there was no attachment to that behavior, but boom, it was gone. And then we could move on to the next thing, And I won't give any more details, but a very talented musician.
I think the biggest difference between you and I and our experience with people with autism is you worked or have been around people with autism who were probably teenagers and adults, more so. And I've worked with more like children,
Yeah,
toddlers,
young children.
and younger children. And really, they had a hard time functioning in the classroom at times because there was too much sound, too much stimuli, too much going on. And then oftentimes what would happen was they have perceived bad behavior because it was too much. And when they would come to my classroom, I mean, once in a while we'd have an issue, but for the most part, they were glad to be there because it was quiet, because it was only a few children in there at one time, and I understood that they needed that, and that I wasn't punishing them for bad behavior when it was part of their disability. I was working with their behavior to help them learn better coping skills instead of punishing them for their perceived bad behavior, which was really just a coping mechanism. A child who screams suddenly isn't screaming just to misbehave. It's a coping mechanism for them.
Well, I think the similarity between what you've done and what I have done is that I've always worked really with one-on-one, and I would find it much more difficult to work within a group at the same time, because basically we're all individuals. It doesn't matter what your skills are, who you are, what your weaknesses and your strengths are. We're all individuals, and when you're a teacher, or I think to consider myself maybe more of a guide than anything. When you're in that role, what you can do is really address the individual within that situation. So I'm lucky being a music teacher that works one-on-one with students, and it means choices in terms of music, of course, and addressing strengths and weaknesses and that sort of thing. But it also means we can really focus in on who the person is and help them to become a kind of a greater version of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you were doing with working with small groups and with individuals too, right?
Yeah.
It makes them really step up into a new version and vision of themselves, I think.
Okay.
All right, number 2 then.
Let's put my glasses on.
Oh, okay.
Our sons and education.
Our sons and education.
Okay. So it's not far from what we were just talking about.
So let's start by giving them a little
My nose
background.
itches.
Okay.
Okay.
You
Okay,
have to-
so
Wait.
oh
Let's start with a little background. So we've been married for just under a year now.
yes,
And
been
we have
together almost 3.
but we have sons. Well, let's go, I'll go through
Okay.
mine. 22-year-old son, almost, right? Oh gosh, we shouldn't have had the drinks first. So and then 17-year-old daughter. So I guess he's 22. Coming up
Okay,
to
so
22,
Eric
yeah.
is
That's-
23.
Should we say names?
Oh, sorry.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
oh. My son is 23.
Yeah.
Daniel's
they're-
son is 22.
so they're, you
very
know,
close
really
in
close.
age. Yeah, about
And-
a year and a half apart.
Not just close in age, they decided to move in to a house together, and so that's cool.
Yeah, they're in an apartment together. They get along really well. They have very similar interests and abilities.
Yeah.
And so when they were in high school, they didn't know one another, and Daniel and I didn't know one another. So all of this happened outside of each other.
Yeah.
But they had very similar experiences, and their senior year, both of them, I hope they don't mind us saying, but like made it through by the skin of their teeth to graduate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's facts too. I mean,
Yes,
the
and
reality is.
they're both very bright kids.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't have ability, because both of them are very bright. And there's a picture of me after my son graduated with him going like this, because it was such a ordeal getting to graduation.
Yeah. Oh no, with my son, it was touch and go until literally the last day, as to whether he was going to get all of his work in and get his graduated. And in the end, I mean, he graduated with honors. What do they call
Yeah,
that?
Eric too, with an advanced degree.
An advanced degree. Yeah. So it's like touch and go, touch and go. Now I know both of them are smart kids.
Yeah, I mean they both took advanced courses, and they're just both very bright kids.
Yeah.
They're not kids anymore; they're young adults.
Yeah. And the thing is too, I think there's an element of our education that kind of bypasses and struggles to deal with the brighter kids. I mean, when my son he was homeschooled for the first few years, and I'm sure this is going to be similar to some of the parents out there. So when he was homeschooled, he read continuously. He loved to read more than anything else. I mean, more than anything else, with possible exception of soccer for a little while, where he was playing at the Y and used to run around with a huge grin on his face. Actually, your son loves sports too.
Mm-hmm.
But so he would read all the time, and when he went to school in 4th grade, his teacher said that she had never experienced a child that could read as well as my son could, with such a feeling as he was reading, and
When he was reading out loud.
when he was reading out loud. So within the first 2 weeks, though, he was reprimanded for reading ahead in class, and within a few months, he wasn't reading anymore. So that expression of who he was and that joy that was within him was just taken away within a very short space of time. I mean, of course, he still read, but it was because he had to, rather than because he wanted to.
And I have to say, as a former educator and being in the education system in elementary school, there are so many talented teachers and educators out there who have such a passion for teaching, and they're so restricted by the paradigms that the education system put on them, and standardized testing and 9 weeks blocks that you have to get such and such in during these 9 weeks, and so
You have to get ready for
it's
the
not
tests and
really down, for the most part. It's not down to the teachers. It's the whole education system that really fails certain kids. You know, for
Yeah.
certain kids, it's wonderful and they excel and just do wonderful. And for certain kids who don't fit in that mold, whether they have a disability or maybe the other end, they still don't fit into that mold, and they kind of sometimes can miss out on and you know, not kind of fall off. You know,
Yeah.
kind of
There's a
go on the
great
radar.
there's a great TED talk. It's we just looked it up, and Paula hadn't seen it, so we began to watch it the other day. But actually, didn't actually finish it because it was late at night. But it's by Sir Ken Robinson, and he's funny as anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's talking about in that one he's talking about the failure of the system and how some of the very brightest kids kind of fall off the map, you know, almost as if the Earth was flat. As far as education, which goes to my next question. Can we
Well,
do?
it's
I know
mine.
it's your turn, and I know I have a tendency, but actually,
All right. Okay.
but it fits so
Okay.
well. I mean, really, we can
This
do
is
two
what
of yours.
happens.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So.
Education and a new way forward.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, you know, I just said about falling off the flat map of the earth, right? As far as education goes, and the reality is that education is outdated. In my opinion, it's very dated. It's from a different time.
So how do we gauge whether students are learning and whether teachers are teaching effectively?
Okay, so I have that figured out. So my mum was a head teacher in England. That's a principal in America, and she and I had some really good discussions about education and how we could actually go forward into the future and actually address some of these things. So, especially nowadays, we have all this computer technology. And the first thing you said was, how can you tell if somebody's learning? Well, we do have to test, but not in the way that we're used to. We can go along with regular electronic learning and testing at the pace of a student nowadays.
Electronic?
Yeah, absolutely. So listen
Okay.
to me now. Listen to me
Okay.
now. Because the reality is, and this is maybe a homeschooling fact, but the reality is, they say new material in school each day, which is about 6 hours long or so, you know, new material taught is about 45 minutes. Most of the rest of the time is cajoling kids, keeping kids in line, doing the same things over and over and over again, so that they, you know, doing those repeated things, which was one of the problems with my son. That's not what he wanted to do. He didn't want to. Once he had something, he didn't want to keep doing it.
But some students need the repetition.
Absolutely, exactly. So, we have computers now, which can, and software and education software, where and if it doesn't exist, which it does, I know it does, we can create it with no problem.
He's confident.
Oh yeah, I am sometimes. So in this matter, I know that we can create something because we see it in other areas where what you can do is you can learn through computer-aided technology and computer-aided learning, find out where there are weaknesses, go back through those weaknesses and bring the students forward. And so everybody gets to at least a certain level. But the ones who are ready to go further can go further. Wait, because there's more.
I'm skeptical.
That is only a very, very short part of the day. Okay? Because my feeling is that people are always best motivated by the things that they're most interested in. So most of the rest of the day would be in self-study, guided self-study, and learning self-motivation. Now, you're coming from a perspective. I know I can already hear it. I can feel what you're thinking. We often think the same things, but you're coming right now from a perspective of seeing kids where they are, which is undermotivated, guided and motivated generally by like computer games and like and social media and blah blah blah. I mean stuff that we don't.
I have two real distinct perspectives with education. So of course my own children, because I was with them during their journey through education, and all of them were very bright, whatever bright means, but you know, were on target on grade level when it came to reading and math, and were often above grade level.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my perspective. And so my son would get bored, my daughters too sometimes, but it kind of manifests itself
Mm-hmm.
differently between boys and girls.
Yeah.
And then my other perspective as a special education teacher, and students who weren't undermotivated and were really trying really hard and still not measuring up to grade level,
Oh, yeah.
no matter what we would do. So I really have two different perspectives with that.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest concern with what you're saying is the human aspect of it.
You haven't
being
let me
gone.
finish though.
Okay.
You haven't let me finish.
Okay.
So the a good chunk of the day would be spent in self-guided education, in areas where people would find their own interest. The other two areas, and the kind of combination really, would be in group learning, and that would be specifically. Well, I mean, let me say the last area because it kind of covers the group learning in many regards. But it's where creative arts programs would actually take more of a lead in education, because then it would be down to learning to put on a play together and building the set. Because when you see what happens in theatre, or, you know, because we've been involved in some theatre productions, and I've been involved in a lot of theatre productions, and music, where you see an orchestra or a band working together, all of those creative aspects where you're gathering forces to people, individuals, with their own concepts and ideas, working together, which is what the reality of the world is. We have to work with other people. So to actually create a world where an education system where we're working with people, and in areas where there's levels of creativity and community working together, which was actually one of the original thoughts behind education, was community.
Yeah.
Then
But now it's down to funding and whether you pass your standardized tests. And
yeah. Well,
which
and
really
I do
takes the
think,
creativity out of
and
teaching.
I do really think that there has to be like minimum standards of in each area or subject or whatever, and that's where the computer training comes in. It would just aid in seeing where their weaknesses are. There's a guy that I've heard about who gets all of his primary age school children to do very complicated mathematical problems, and every single one of them can do it, and they're all racing to raise their hands up, and that's because he's taken the time to make sure all of the steps are filled in. And I think
I did that with my students with language arts and learning parts of speech, and that can be sometimes a challenge for any child. And they all got it. And
Yeah.
I had somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody was observing my class that one day, and my students were just had it, and she was amazed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think we there is a lot more potential for a round earth education system, like a real global acknowledgement of the individual within the collective.
Okay. I have
There
a
you go.
short attention span.
Okay, let me see what it is.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna put this up to the camera. You won't be able to read it because it's be backwards, but it says belly dancing. There you go.
Yeah.
Belly dancing.
Yeah. What do you think?
Dancing.
Well, yeah. I think it's dancing.
It's definitely dancing. So we've got a little bit of
East?
the East Coast America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought
East.
you meant like the.
Well, it's
Eastern.
really we're really in the West, right?
Yeah, but
It's like, well, I was going to say East
regionally
Coast.
it's more south. Dance. That's more south.
Dance.
Dance.
Dance is definitely more English. But East meets Easter because we're in England. We're even further Easter.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. But anyway, we're all from the West, and Paula likes
So,
some belly dancing.
Yeah, I do. A few years ago, I started doing some belly dancing. Well, probably 10 years. No, it was more than 10 years ago. Probably 11 years ago. It's been a long time, actually. And so recently, I wanted to start again, and so I started using the videos that I used before. Well, I've done it once, I think.
Yeah, but just recently.
Yeah, just recently, yeah. So I wanted to start back. But I won't let Daniel watch. He wants to just stand and watch me. No.
Why
So-
not? Yeah.
Because I want to just do my
Actually,
thing.
I didn't want you at all. I
You
did.
wanted to, though, and I made you go away.
Well, there you are. Actually, her claim was that I wanted to watch the video of the lady dancing, which I
maybe
didn't actually
that's
see any of the
true.
video because I wasn't allowed in the room.
Because you were watching me.
The harem banished the whatever the males are.
I don't know.
Yeah. So
Maybe it's the women, like, learning to belly dance to... What
Oh,
are they
now we're
called?
gonna
Who would have the grapes and the...
I don't know.
with the fans and fan to man. What
Oh,
was
I
that?
don't know. Eunuch.
Opposite of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
like the king or the prince
Yes.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, oh, I don't know. I don't know. If you know, I don't know right now. I'll probably know in just a little while.
Maybe are they harlots or whatever they
No,
and they were
those are
just like
women.
they were just like belly dancers or harlots or whatever, and they had the grapes and they would fan the man and be kind of his
Oh.
entertainment.
Oh, I see.
And I think he was the king or some kind of person
Yes.
on the throne or some kind of
Yes.
authority. Your typical man on the
Yeah.
throne
Yeah.
and the women fawning over him.
Yeah, that's just like the way it is. I mean, really, how things how things
How
change.
far can I roll my eyes back up?
Oh, yeah.
It's not how it is in our house.
No, I think we're pretty equal, aren't we?
We are. Yeah, we're very balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except when it comes to belly dancing, because I haven't belly danced. I
Why?
don't know. Is it a male thing?
I don't
Do you
think
have
I've
male
ever seen a male belly dance,
dances?
but maybe if
Hmm.
anybody out there does, they could show us.
Make a video is what she says. But would I be allowed to see that one?
It's not seeing the video, it's watching me. You wanted to just stand and watch me.
Well, why
That's
not?
kind of awkward. If I were doing cooking and he likes to just stand and watch what I do,
I love to
whether I'm
watch her.
cooking and he's just standing there watching, or whether I'm sewing, or
Yeah.
he just wants to stand there and watch every move I make.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's so lovely.
That's not it.
Actually, I was thinking earlier on today when you were making the drinks that we were making, she was making.
Yes, and he stood there watching me while I was making the
because
drinks.
I was thinking she was doing something, and I was thinking, how would I
How
do
would you
that?
do it different or better? Because I'm not
No,
doing it
how
the
would I
right
improve
way.
upon that? Because we did end up with the sweetener all over the place, all over the counter.
Well, that's exactly it. You
But
want
no,
to
but that's-
criticize
But
me.
no, I wasn't criticizing you. I was actually not at the time.
Well, now.
No, I'm not. I was thinking though at the time. I was thinking that's kind of you're going about that a little differently than I would.
So-
How could I do that differently
Oh,
and
no,
better?
I think what it is you need to learn is how do I let this go?
Oh no,
Let it
I didn't say a
go,
thing.
Let it go. You didn't have to.
Mm-mm.
It was all in your eyes. I can read your brain.
So one
It's
of the
right-
things.
It's right through the eyes.
So one of the things I've found about myself is I'm always trying to do stuff better than I did it before.
Or better than somebody else did it.
Yeah, I mean, or if I find something like I love watching like cooks, really amazing chefs, and they have a specific way of cutting and chopping, and I was like, oh, I've never, because if you haven't learned how to do something, how can you can learn how to do something better? And so yeah, I've always kind of liked to. I think that which goes on to is that really the next topic?
Do I need my glasses?
Kind of.
Okay,
Okay, so which one? Well,
just give
let's
me
see.
one.
All right. Well,
I don't want to read it till I.
okay. Until you read it.
How we hear music, the musician and the listener. This is really interesting, our topics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
I'll
I'm glad
explain more
they're
about that
interesting.
later. My observation about our topics.
Are they similar?
They're not, no, but
Not
they're a good
at all.
reflection of ourselves. How we hear music, the musician and the listener. How we hear.
How we hear.
So you could take that as how we hear audibly. Sometimes, okay, to a certain degree, I might really identify with Temple Grandin and noise. And noise to me sometimes is just anything audible.
So we have the introvert and we have the extrovert here. And so, of course, this coronavirus quarantining thing has been an interesting time for us because, hasn't it? Because one of us is totally happy, really, to be.
Way out there all the time.
No, I meant no. One of us is totally happy to be able to spend time indoors.
With my headphones on.
Yeah, I'm going under, she says. Which means don't disturb me right now. Which, one of the great things that we do have about each other is that we are really good communicators with each other.
Most of the time.
Yeah, no, we are.
We are.
So if there's a challenge that we have, we express that challenge. Right?
You do.
Don't laugh, it's true. It's totally true. So, she said, she told me, like, one of the things I used to do with one of my co-workers when we weren't getting anything done is we would put each one of us.
Because we shared an office. It was just the two of us in the office. Yeah. And we would have great conversations, but we would get really distracted and realize we've been talking for an hour and not working.
Yeah. So I'm going under is what, they would do.
And that would be the polite signal to the other person, don't disturb me.
Right.
Unless it was something really funny.
well, we never experienced anything really funny. So, and then you've got the extrovert, yeah, who is like whew, in a cage right now.
I'm
Like, I
in it
mean,
with that extrovert.
yeah, like one of those a tiger, you know, pacing back and forth, uh,
You just
ready
didn't
to
say
escape.
tiger, did you?
Yeah, I did say tiger.
Only one of us has watched Tiger King.
Yeah.
Which one do you think that was? Don't tell him.
Okay. All the way through. Yeah. Okay, so now you have something to guess about. um, all right, so what were we saying?
Music and how we hear music
Oh,
and the sound
yeah.
of music. So,
Well,
but
there's
I
so
do
many
like the sound of
levels. You were
music.
saying that there were levels, right?
Yeah, so if you just think audibly, I love music. I love that it can touch me in a certain way, or it can lift my spirits, or it can make me feel crazy,
Mm.
or like all of those positive things that you might want music to feel. But at a certain time, it's sometimes too much for me, and I've got to just bring it down, and I just don't want so much distraction going on. So that's just the audible part of it.
Well, and then I'm the musician. So there are times when music, I mean, music at its best can really give me a full and complete experience uh, of what humanity can be at its best. I mean, and I think music is a version of humanity at its best. Um, but also, as a musician and somebody who is always trying to look for improvement, I'm very critical. Like, not just of, I mean, not always of other people. I mean, I think I'm critical of myself, of course. I think a lot of us suffer from being more critical of ourselves than we are of other people. But just like being in the experience of music, sometimes it's hard without thinking, ooh, oh, yeah, do you see what they did there? That is a step up or great use of a certain type of scale or whatever. So being a musician, we hear in totally different ways.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and so, for instance, music that I may have been listening to 10, 15 years ago, which is not necessarily critically acclaimed music, um, you know,
I don't know about critically acclaimed.
well,
Yeah,
but it's
much more.
music that was really helping me get through a difficult time of life, and it really touched me a certain way and helped in whatever level that was at the moment, kind of, you know, touched me at some level and helped to guide me through a certain time of life. And I'll hear that now, and I guess it reminds me of that time, but in a really good way because it was a help to me during that time, and it may have been a silly country music song. That's what I meant, but
That's what you meant?
that's what I meant. But it really did help me during a time that was really difficult for me. So I think the difference in us is that I can listen to music for what it is without um, going deep into it and dissecting it for different reasons. And so maybe sometimes I am listening to it on the surface level. Um, and that's okay because to some degree
That's what it
that's
is.
what it is,
Yeah.
you know.
And then as a musician, it's sometimes difficult to listen on the surface level. And it means sometimes that it's very difficult to listen to surface level music, actually. Um, I mean, I could say that it's difficult. It has been difficult in my life to listen to like really out of tune singers or whatever. Although I think I've overcome that. But I think I have an awareness that this kind of goes back to the whole Temple Grandin thing too, like the skill of attuning to the message rather than the way the message is delivered. You know, you see what I'm saying with that? Um, I think I've really come to an awareness of how the even if it's not delivered in the most elite, let's say the elite precise fashion, as far as you know, being in tune, being the the most concise, beautiful performance. There's a beauty in the personality of the performance, which actually that goes back to our education thing, being individuals, right?
Yeah.
See how everything is interconnected.
I
What
think
is the next? What is the next interconnected
for some
topic?
reason, there's like a theme running through everything.
There's always a theme running through everything.
With us, it is.
Oh, well, this is an interesting one because shutdown of schools.
Now, in Virginia, and I think there are other states that are like this too, but schools are closed for the remainder of the school year. And students are learning at home, which I think that right now is probably most everywhere. So students are learning at home. Teachers are sending packets of work to home for students. And I think in some areas they're using Zoom or some other technology at some times to learn or to get together and learn. And that is a real challenge. Well, I think that would be a real challenge for any parent.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're a homeschooler that you've been homeschooling all along. I mean, learning at home has its different challenges.
Well, you know, I've found that homeschoolers have. Of course, there's different types of homeschoolers. There's the homeschool really good learners, and then there's the unschoolers, the homeschoolers who are they're not being guided as well as they could, let's say, and so not every parent is. Not everybody, every parent is able to homeschool, but there's also, I think there's also, maybe not every kid is ready to be homeschooled either, but I think, I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong either in the concept of unschooling, where, I don't know if anybody knows what that means, but like, it's really kind of unguided learning and teaching.
I think for certain people that could really work.
Yeah.
My concern is for the parent who doesn't have the ability, whether it's they don't have the education, which you don't need the education so much, but they could be limited in some ways.
Yeah.
Or they may be an essential worker who is every day going to work and busting their butts and doing what they can, and then they have to come home and they just want to relax and be with their children, and now they have to do lessons with their kids, and their kids could be pushing back and really creating this idea of trauma or discontent around education, when education really should be exploration and positive, and it's not the parents' fault, it's not the education system's fault, it's everybody's trying to do the best that they can. And for some parents it's going to work, and some parents it is not going to work, and those are the kids who are going to be at a disadvantage.
Education.
What? Education?
Yeah. I've got to say though, we when Tristan, I wasn't going to say his name. Well, when my son was at school, it was a struggle very often to get him to do his homework in the evenings. And so you talk about having the struggle at the end of a work day, even if it's not homeschool time, or not there's kind of a time with being away from the school, from learning. It can still be a struggle with your kid.
I gave my students very, very little homework because I felt like they put the work in during the day, and when they got home, they needed some free time. Their brains needed a break, they needed time for creativity, or maybe just rest, maybe like nothing going on, but just kind of
One
being
of
out and
the
decompressing, and their parents needed it as well. You know, some parents are fine with more homework, but oftentimes most families it's either one parent in the household or there are two, but they're both working. And when you get home from work and you have to do homework, it causes so much stress. And
it does.
you know,
Big
I
stress.
gave my students very little homework because as a parent, I felt like it was busy
I
work.
gotta say, there was somebody that I grew up with at high school, whose parents specifically said that their child would not do any homework, and so they weren't given any, which is pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah.
They stood up for them was what their rule was. They wouldn't do any education, and their child ended up going, not a child anymore because they're the same age as me, ended up going to Cambridge University, which is, if you're an American, that's Harvard and Yale. You know,
Yeah.
England, it's Oxford and Cambridge, and it's, you know, I mean, if you're not doing homework and you end up in a place like that,
I think you're going to be okay.
yeah, I think so.
Alright, I'm going in for the next one.
Okay, go on then. Wait, which one is it? Wait. I think it was
This
this
happens
one.
a lot. I'm waiting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Audio visual. The theme again. Seeing is my hearing. Creativity, details versus different perspectives. Okay, you have to explain that.
Yeah. So we were talking about like the other day. I think that what came up was Paula has been doing a lot of my like artistic work, the creative end of doing like Facebook posts and the
Like
social media things,
Social media, graphics,
that kind of thing.
marketing
And she's
stuff.
got a really good eye for that, and she's really hey, cheers. And she's got a really good eye, and she's really
I have
detailed.
one good eye.
Just one. You,
This one
for those
drinks.
of you listening at home, you have to work out. You have to wonder which eye it is. That's the good eye. Get in close so they can have a look.
Okay. Which is my good eye?
There you go. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out which is her good eye. So, and you know, one of the things is when I'm doing music, I will listen to music over and over and over and over again, fine tuning it, which if you're not a musician is totally nuts, like totally crazy.
It
But-
drives me crazy, but I know that it's needed. I know that it's
But when you're doing a version of like a CD cover, for example, it wasn't until like the 13th or 14th attempt, and they were all good, where you got into the point of the place where you could say, okay, now this is complete and this is finished. Right, so that's just like me listening to the same thing over and over and over and again, and just like tweaking it a little bit, taking a little bit of the treble off, or
I've never thought
redoing
about
the
it in that
words.
perspective. So
Yeah.
now that helps us
Yeah.
understand each other a
Yeah, I
little
know.
bit better.
So one of my goals from this was to help us to learn the perspective. Go back to that card. I think it's that one there. You know, people, it's different perspectives, right? And people come in with different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And until you have the opportunity rather, to express those perspectives, and listen to those. Another connection, you see how things work.
Mhm.
Listen and hear those perspectives that you can that you. It's until that you can actually understand and those from where you are.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've noticed is, all we've been talking about is creativity versus precision. Oh, I can't remember what my word was there now, but creativity versus details. Like, you know, I think in this comes in again to like links back to finding the things that you love and working on those things,
Mhm.
and finding not just creative ways to think about things, but ways to make those things a reality through the detailed work
And
of,
persistence.
and persistence of putting those things together. That takes us back to Temple Grandin, right?
Yeah.
Like, not only was she thought in a totally different way. Now, if you guys haven't watched the film, it's a really good film.
It's on
I think
Amazon
Prime.
Prime. Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's not a documentary, but it's a biography about her life. It's really
it's
interesting.
really interesting.
Mhm.
And it kind of opens you up to the possibility that there are new ways to think of things that we haven't discovered or interacted with
But
yet.
it's also about finding your passion, because, for instance, like lights, that might not necessarily be my passion. So I wouldn't necessarily be real persistent when it came to something to do with lights. But
Well,
like,
hang on, wait a sec. You say that, but we've got light. We've got
Okay.
a light up there
Okay.
with a cover on it because she's very creative, and we've got a light down here
but
that's like attached.
I am very creative, and my mind thinks in a very creative way out of the box. So although I might be using lights in what I'm doing, the light itself isn't necessarily my passion, but creativity is my passion.
Mhm.
So it's your perspective, but you might not have that perseverance for something that you're not passionate about either. So trying to figure out how to live stream recently, I know some people might think a little differently, but I'm not, I don't have a lot of knowledge of technology, put it that way. But if I'm really persistent or really want to do something, I set my mind to it, it's going to happen. I get very persistent that it's going to happen. So then I figured out OBS and how to live stream with OBS and how to use my phone as a webcam. And it might all sound simple, but it's not.
Technology. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Tech.
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's getting technology right now. She's getting much more knowledge on tech.
But the thing is, I will
Through
learn
persistence.
technology what I feel passion for, what I want to learn.
Yeah.
No, but for the other stuff that I'm not interested in, I don't.
That's
I
why
just let it go.
that's why we need to develop the areas that in education where we are following our path of caring, what we care about, what our passion is, what we want to
But
grow
how did
into.
you find that so young? I mean, when I was in high school, technology would not have been the thing I thought was my thing. Yeah, just ask my friends. They would have said that wasn't my passion.
Well,
but it's also
I thi-
about your journey,
yeah,
because
it is. It's
everything that has led me to where I am now and learning more technology during this time that we're at home, everything that has happened before has led me to where I am now to learning this technology.
and it's all steps forward. I've heard it said that there is you never can see the steps forward, the stepping stones forward into the future, but you can look back and see the stepping stones as they arrived, and they're not always in the straight and narrow path that we all assume life is going to well, I don't know if we assume it, but we think that life is going to send us down the straight and narrow path, and we're going to find our passion, we're going to follow it, and that's the way it is. Even if you know what your passion is, even if you know where what your general direction is, there's a lot of twists and turns in that part.
I didn't finish my bachelor's degree until I was in my 40s. I started after high school, but my path took me a different way. And at the time, before I started back to school, I thought that's never going to happen. My ship has sailed, but it's never sailed. You can get on the next ship,
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I'm always encouraging. I like working with adults. I'm always encouraging adults to learn something or to do something that they've always wanted to do. And normally with me it's music, but I very often will ask people if there's an instrument that they always wanted to learn, and to just do it, Take the time and spend some time learning something, because it may not be that is the thing that is for them for the rest of their life, but there is some
learning and growing.
Well, and through doing that, you learn more about yourself.
Yeah. I learned something just now.
You did?
The cover came off of my thumb.
Okay. We weren't talking about thumbs and cutting and kitchens and things.
Okay.
Okay, is it you or me?
I think it's your turn.
I've only got one left. It
I
looks
have
like you've
two
got
left.
two. So I think we need to go with yours.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, we kind of covered this a little bit.
Yeah, we have. So
But not really.
we can skim over it and go.
Oh, well, I don't know that you can skim over this altogether. Family. Back to front. Family. There you go. Front
You
to
can
back.
tell who wrote which card. This one. Ow.
She wouldn't give me the red pen.
There's a difference.
Creativity and precision.
Or teacher.
Or is it? Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's yeah.
Yeah. So family's important to both of us. Very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we.
One of the most important things in my life, actually.
Yeah, me too. I have 3 children. Daniel has 2.
So together we have. Don't tell them.
Can you guess? But they're all about the same age, except for my oldest
Actually,
is a little bit older, and your youngest is a little younger.
There's another answer to that question. Together, we have none.
That's right. We don't. Just only in our minds sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes we've said, how nice it would be to have been parents together.
Yeah, it would have been sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been very sweet.
But we parent each other's adult kids, and almost adult kids, sort of together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, So, but it's different being parents to young adults.
How deep do we want to go? We want to talk about pasts.
Oh, what kind of pasts?
No, about past relationships and things. Maybe next week or another week.
That's
maybe
a whole
we'll talk about
episode.
Well, there you go. We
Okay,
dealt with family.
moving
That was
on.
quick. That was quick. Oh, are you going to do you?
Oh, no, you go next.
Oh, yeah. That's perfect. That's perfect for the last one.
Yes,
there,
yeah.
Okay. So, you're supposed to read
Oh,
it.
yeah, hold on. I gotta put my glasses on. Oh, I didn't know what being tune.
That's my writing.
Tune. Being in tune, it's all music for you. Thinking the same things, different perspectives. Okay.
So, wait a sec. This is not music at all. Like, not music. Being in tune is so not music. It's the connection that we have where we will think exactly the same thing at exactly the same time.
Yeah, and not just once in a while. It's too often
scary.
to be just coincidence, And what we're thinking isn't general. It's something really specific. And we have the same thought.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
weird, frankly,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah, we are definitely really connected.
We are definitely.
Well, it really,
Weird, definitely connected.
weird maybe too.
Yeah.
I
but
guess
it's-
it happened the
strange.
night we met because we were one of like, would you say 8 people at this concert at that time
Yeah,
when
oh,
we
yeah.
first got there?
Oh, when we first got there, were
Yeah.
about 8 people, but yeah.
Yeah.
By the end of the
and
night-
sitting in the same little, like this big, huge field, and we were, one of really probably about 8 people sitting really close together at the front. Just they're
What
really
we
early.
deemed the front at the time.
It was
What actually happened is, as the rest of the 3,000 people began to join us, they pushed us forward, and we didn't want to lose our space near the front, so we kept kind of moving
Pushing
forward,
our chair,
and
pushing
that
our
meant
chair.
that we would get close. We actually ended up getting closer together.
Yeah.
Um,
Having a really, really fun time.
but what was your thought at the time? Because it wasn't. You see, this is the
Well-
different perspective.
This is the different perspective. So when I got there early because I really didn't want to go by myself, but no one would go with me, and it was a band there that I really was. The band I wanted to see was the opening for the big band, and I really wanted to see it, and so I got there early so I could get my safe little spot to just sit there, just sit in my safe little spot and watch the concert, and because I knew if I went home I was gonna kind of wallow in my pity party because nobody would go with me to the
It's
concert.
because it was her birthday.
It was my birthday. Nobody would go with me to see this group I wanted to see. So I was out and I had a chair with me because the concert was outside. And I said, well, I'm going to go now because if I go home, it's not going to be good. And so I got there, was maybe like 2 or 3 hours early? Maybe
Yeah.
not 3, but maybe 2. It was really
good
early.
early, yeah.
And so there weren't many people there, but like they were kind of 2 groups of people like right here. So I kind of got in between the 2 groups, but back just a little bit, just so I could see, and I was kind of off to the side so I could just not be noticed. And so there's this guy sitting up, and he had a hat on
And sunglasses.
and sunglasses.
Backwards hat.
Backwards hat?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I think it was.
Anyway.
May have been backwards.
I don't know. But this guy kept turning around looking at me. And I was not in the mood to have this polite chit chat with somebody I didn't know. And kept turning around looking at me. So
She thought I was going to hit on her.
that's what I thought. Because you kept looking at me. You kept turning around. And so I would go to the bathroom. I would look at my phone. I went up and got a drink. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not in the mood for that tonight. And then he turned around and said,
I said, hello. I said, who are you here to see?
and then, what did I do?
Well, you went,
I did not.
she thought to herself, wow,
I did think,
where did he come from?
because I kind of thought he was, I don't want to say it, because
I had
it's not a
shorts.
nice word. I don't
No,
want
I
to say
had
it.
shorts on, a t-shirt, I had a backwards hat and sunglasses. So she was thinking the worst.
And that doesn't make somebody bad because they wear their hat backwards and sunglasses.
Oh yeah.
But I thought you were.
The worst for her at that time is what I mean.
Yes, that's a good way
Yeah.
to put it. So,
Just
so I
another guy trying to hit on her.
So, that's kind of where I was.
So what you need to know is I had decided like 2 weeks earlier that I was fine being by myself. I was not going to worry about females anymore.
Yeah, and I was done too.
Yeah,
It
so
was,
that
Yeah.
was like 2 weeks earlier.
yeah. So I was doing my best to just look everywhere else but at him, and then he spoke to me, and I thought, oh,
But
he's
then-
not from around here.
You're not from around here, are you?
Where did he come from?
Yeah.
And then we had this polite little conversation, which I was trying to avoid. And then, like you said, we kept getting like pushed together, pushed together, pushed together. And then our chairs were like literally side by side, and lots of people, thousands of people probably
Yeah,
were there that
3,000
night.
people, yeah.
And we had the best time, and he wasn't hitting on me. He was just being friendly because he is friendly with everyone.
Yeah, but I was also not going to hit on anybody because I wasn't interested in women anymore.
But we had such a fun time listening to the music, and we'd go up to the front of the stage and dance a little and listen to the music and come back and sit down. Actually, we spent most of the time up at the front once it got going, I think. Yeah. And then when the night was over, we didn't exchange phone numbers. We just friended each other on Facebook.
I was like, okay, well, I mean, I wasn't going to do anything, actually. And then I said, well, you know, if you're going to go to another concert and you don't have anybody to go with, I mean, you know, if you want to get in contact with me, you know, I always like music. So.
Yeah, and I think we walked out together, maybe. Just walked out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think we did.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, it wasn't really kind of, in some ways, it wasn't a big, important thing, right?
Right. It was a fun night, and that was about, but again, perspectives are different because you're an outgoing, extrovert, friendly person who talks to everybody when we go out. So that was nothing new for you. I'm typically an introvert, even if I wasn't kind of in that place I was in that night. I'm still an introvert. So for me to kind of spend the evening dancing and having fun with a stranger, like, you know, which just
well,
on.
I remember what you said about being with me that evening. You said it was like being with an old high school friend.
Yeah, it felt like a high school friend I hadn't seen in 20 years, 10 or 20 years, and we just had a great fun, you know, just a fun time together, listening to music and dancing. There was, you know, there was no pressure there. There was nothing. It was just a fun evening. But for me, it was a little out of my typical because I'm an introvert.
Well,
but for you, it was kind
well,
of
yeah, now.
typical.
But when I was a kid, I was extremely shy. So, and, you know, it shows how far I've come too.
But I
So.
think even though you were shy, there's a difference between shyness and being an introvert or extrovert. So you were probably genuinely shy, but you're an extrovert. I was shy as a kid too, but I'm an introvert. If we had met when we were kids, this would have been us.
What's that? We wouldn't have been
No talking. We
to
would have
us.
just sat there. Yeah.
So, what's next?
Yeah, that was the last card. Is what's next.
What's next is the last card.
Well, I think.
Oh, I hope this isn't too serious.
No, but all that we've learned during the stay-at-home order, I've learned. Well, I'm learning every day, but I've learned a lot of technology, which has been really needed, and I'm learning. Some days are a struggle, and so I'm working my way through those days that are a struggle to figure out, number one, how to be productive in the day, and so that I feel better about myself, and number two, what is it that I'm supposed to learn during this? Yeah, so that's what's next for me, learning.
Oh yeah, that's next for me forever.
Well, yes, but
You
I
know.
think this time is.
Oh, it's
Like-
a great opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, you do have great opportunity to spend some time learning into our future. But what's next for us?
For us, what is
Is-
next?
We're gonna put this up on YouTube, and then we'll do another one next week.
Yeah. So I think if anybody is interested, you know, not that we have profound things to say, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but
Maybe it might spark some interest with you guys,
Yeah.
which is more important anyway.
so if you have an idea or a topic that you want to hear us talk about, let us know, and we will put that on one of our cards. So you could either send it to one of our Facebook pages, or just type it in the comments.
In the comments under the
Yeah, but if
YouTube.
maybe there's a topic that somebody wants me to bring up, they don't want you to know until I bring it up. You know,
Ooh.
like the surprise
Ooh.
comments.
Oh yeah.
So if they want it to be kind of like a surprise
Facebook
comment,
message her.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anything.
Oh.
That could get interesting.
Oh, God. Well, I don't know that I want to say anything like that.
Oh, okay.
You can
I
have
say
all sorts of things.
any suggestion. We might
Yeah.
not necessarily take the suggestion live, but we would probably give it.
Yeah, we're actually pretty open. We could
Yeah.
address most things, I would say.
Yeah. But if you kind of want it to be a surprise that he doesn't know about until we actually film, send it to me. If you want it to be a surprise for me that I don't know about till we're filming, send it to him. But if you don't care, if it's whatever, just put it in the comments
Put it
below.
in the comments below. And I guess subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe.
Subscribe
And
to
if
the
you have
channel.
an idea for the name of our little
yeah.
show.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
if you want to call this a show.
we don't want to call it Paula and Daniel, the Paula and Daniel show, I
Well,
don't think.
I don't think that my name is Paula.
Paula. So, it could have something to do with, we may always have, what's this?
Red drink.
Red drink juice.
Or maybe each week we have a different juice.
Oh, that's so varied.
Mm-hmm. You know the guy that does on Facebook, he's is he Jamaican? And he's the bartender, and he makes these crazy drinks.
That's what inspired us.
Yes, it is. I forget his name. We'll have to find out his name and give him credit. But we could have one of his drinks every week. This was his a version of his something juice. What was it called? Oh.
I don't know. I don't know that I want to say.
Okay, well, it was a version of one of his drinks.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm going to blush. I'm blushing. My whole head is going red. Look at the colour difference.
Wow,
yeah, it's quite that.
See?
It's quite that.
Wow, you never.
I really do blush.
I mean, usually it's my chest that blushes, but
Yeah, we don't want to see. They don't want to see all of that.
It's
Well,
nothing. It's just there's nothing there.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're done. And so we did our first one, and
Yeah, we've been thinking about this actually for a while. So
yeah. So
give us some feedback.
yeah. So
Just
we've
be
done our
nice
first one.
about it.
Yeah. Let's see if we come back. Now we'll come back next week.
We'll come back next week.
And we'll do another one. And then let's see what happens. Because before you know it, we'll have like 372
Daily.
no, we're not going to do daily. We're not going to do daily. That's going to be like 5 years or something. 7 years? Okay. Weekly.
Yeah.
Weekly at least. Let's focus on the practical.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye now, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully, you've enjoyed listening to us
Hope so.
warble, and we'll see you again.
Okay.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.